Episode 4, The First Ripple. Sabrina carefully positioned the last protective crystal at the northern point of their practice circle, completing the cardinal arrangement. The tree of seasons loomed above them, its branches creating a natural canopy where autumn leaves danced with spring blossoms in the afternoon light. Perfect conditions for teaching basic protective magic. Remember, she addressed her gathered students, wards are about intention as much as technique. Without proper focus, even the strongest protective magic can falter. Her gaze swept across the diverse group, from teenage Jenny Martinez slouching in her oversized hoodie to George Chen, who'd closed his antique shop early for class. Each face held a different mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. A flicker of movement caught her attention. The crystal nearest Jenny began to pulse with an unusually bright light, its azure glow casting dancing shadows across the grass. Through her magical senses, Sabrina noticed Quill's essence stirring in the nearby plants, their leaves and stems bending toward the girl like curious observers. The familiar warmth of Quill's presence reassured her. Now, watch carefully. Sabrina demonstrated the basic shielding gesture, drawing her hands through the air in a precise pattern that left trailing wisps of golden energy. To her right, George's face screwed up in concentration as he mimicked her movements, his weathered hands trembling slightly. To her surprise, a perfect barrier shimmered into existence around him, its success sending ripples of encouraging magic through the circle. The shield had a faint amber tint, reflecting his connection to autumn energies. Well done, George. But before Sabrina could elaborate, Sarah Thompson's protective charm flared brilliant white. The young mother's face was set with fierce determination, her thoughts clearly on her children at home. The excess power crackled through the air like static electricity, connecting with Jenny's already unstable crystal and creating a web of uncontrolled energy. Magic surged upward in a spiral, drawing on both Halloween and spring energies from the surrounding park. The conflicting seasonal powers twisted together in dangerous patterns. Sabrina quickly stepped between her students and the forming magical storm, her own protective instincts flaring. Around them, plants influenced by Quill's essence wove together, creating a living barrier of protection, their leaves glowing with an ethereal light. Leaves and flower petals whirled in a supernatural tornado, while small bolts of pure magical energy arced between them like miniature lightning, crackling with discordant seasonal power. Several students gasped, their own magic inadvertently feeding the phenomenon, adding layers of complexity to the magical disturbance. Everyone, ground yourselves, Sabrina called out firmly, maintaining her calm despite the chaos. Remember your breathing exercises, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. She began guiding them through the emergency techniques, but Marcus Webb's anxiety spiked visibly. The usually quiet artist's magic erupted, sending streams of sparking autumn colors into the already chaotic display, painting the air with swirling oranges and deep purples. Sabrina's hand went to the fragmented lens hanging at her belt, its familiar weight comforting against her hip. Through its revealing power, she could see the storm's complex energy pattern, a dangerous weave of seasonal magic gone awry, threads of spring and Halloween power tangling and sparking against each other. Without hesitation, she began the fluid movements of an advanced containment spell, her confidence steady despite the swirling chaos. The lens pulsed warmly, helping her track the flow of conflicting energies. She felt her students' eyes on her as she deftly wove Halloween and spring magic together, creating a balanced counter-rhythm to the storm. Her movements were precise and graceful, demonstrating years of practice. Quill's essence pulsed through the surrounding plants, helping to stabilize the natural magic in the area. The tree of seasons above them seemed to respond, its branches swaying in a non-existent wind. Jenny's gasp of understanding cut through the magical white noise. The teenager's earlier skepticism melted away as she watched Sabrina's demonstration of balanced power, her eyes wide with newfound respect. Her previously unstable crystal settled into a steady glow as she tentatively joined in maintaining the containment spell, her own magic finding its proper rhythm. The magical storm gradually dissipated, leaving behind a stunning display, autumn leaves coated with spring pollen that caught the late afternoon light like fairy dust, creating a shimmering curtain of gold and green. Several students broke into spontaneous applause, their faces showing equal parts relief and excitement. The air hummed with residual magic, but it was harmonious now, balanced. This, Sabrina said, seizing the teaching moment as she brushed a glowing leaf from her shoulder, is why we practice control before power. Magic seeks balance, but it needs our guidance to find it. She moved around the circle, helping each student create a small, stable protective ward, adjusting hand positions and offering quiet encouragement. Even Jenny managed a perfect shield, her newfound confidence evident in her slight smile and straightened posture. The afternoon's chaos had transformed into an unexpected but valuable lesson in magical harmony. At the park entrance, Sabrina spotted Noah watching intently, his hand resting near his magical detector. She gave him a subtle nod of reassurance as her students continued their practice, their small wards glowing steadily in the gathering dusk. Sabrina pulled her shawl tighter as she and Noah approached the Historical Society's brick facade. The setting sun cast long shadows across the entrance steps, but something else caught her attention. The protection runes etched into the stonework flickered like dying light bulbs, their usual steady glow disrupted by unseen forces. She lifted the fragmented lens to her eye, its cool glass revealing what normal sight couldn't. The ancient artifact hummed against her skin, its fractured surface casting prismatic reflections across her vision. "Noah, look at this." She traced the air with her finger, following the gaps in the magical barrier, watching how the protective energies flickered and sputtered like dying embers. "The wards are compromised." Noah's jaw tightened as he checked his detection equipment, the device's soft beeping echoing in the tense silence. "Getting some strange readings." Whatever did this was precise, surgical even. Inside, the usually peaceful atmosphere felt wrong, like walking into a room where all the furniture had been shifted slightly out of place. Display cases housing seasonal artifacts pulsed with unstable energy, their contents seeming to vibrate at irregular intervals, sending discordant ripples through the magical field. The decorative plants lining the walls twisted away from certain areas, their movements guided by Quill's essence in response to something that set Sabrina's magical senses on edge. She could feel her old familiar's presence threading through the greenery, a silent warning in every trembling leaf. They found the main ward stone in the entrance hall, its runes altered but not destroyed. Sabrina ran her fingers over the intricate spellwork, recognizing the sophisticated patterns that seemed to dance beneath her touch. The stone felt unnaturally warm, its power redirected rather than diminished. "This matches what we saw in the Gilded Grove." Someone recalibrated it to allow specific magical signatures through. Through the lens, a trail of sickly green energy led toward the artifact wing, pulsing against the building's natural magical flow like an arrhythmic heartbeat. The corrupted magic left an oily residue in the air that made her skin crawl. They followed it to a familiar display case, now empty, its protective glass reflecting their concerned expressions. "The Equinox scepter," Noah said, examining the case's magical lock with a practiced eye. "Look how the mechanism was dissolved from within." They knew exactly how our security worked. His fingers traced the melted edges of the enchanted metal, face grim in the flickering magical light. Sabrina observed the surrounding artifacts through the lens. They seemed drawn to the empty space, their magical energies reaching toward it like compass needles, creating a web of intersecting power lines that made her head ache. A residual signature lingered where the scepter had been, leaving an echo of power that tasted like autumn leaves and spring rain. Noah crouched down, collecting tiny crystals from around the case's base, their surfaces glinting with an unnatural inner light. "These match the ones from the grove." He held them under his detection device, which emitted a series of urgent chirps. "They're designed to erode wards gradually. Someone's been planning this for a while." His jaw tightened as he carefully sealed the crystals in an evidence bag, the muscles in his neck tense with concern. The trail led them into the restricted archives, where gaps on the shelves indicated missing books about seasonal convergence points. Quill's essence revealed invisible markings nearby, study notes, measurements, surveillance patterns that glowed faintly under her magical sight. "They've been mapping the building," Sabrina said, running her hand along the marked shelf, feeling the lingering traces of foreign magic. The energy left a bitter taste in her mouth, like metal and winter frost. A half-burned note caught her attention, its edges still warm to the touch. Through the lens, hidden text emerged, calculations involving the Tree of Seasons energy patterns and references to the upcoming equinox. The handwriting was hauntingly familiar from their Grove investigation, each stroke precise and methodical. Her stomach clenched as she recognized the same measured precision that had marked their previous encounters with the mysterious collector. Suddenly, magic surged through the room like a tidal wave. Artifacts in their cases began activating, their powers colliding in dangerous waves that sent sparks of seasonal energy crackling through the air. The magical discharge tasted like lightning and autumn leaves on her tongue. Sabrina quickly channeled stabilizing energy, drawing on her connection to the Tree of Seasons, while Noah used his equipment to create a containment field. The familiar warmth of spring magic flowed through her veins as she worked to counter the chaos. Working together, they managed to suppress the magical discharge, though the effort left them both breathing heavily, her hands trembling slightly from the exertion. As the chaos settled, fresh magical residue gleamed near a concealed door, shimmering like morning dew. The lens revealed how the intruder had used the building's own magical network like a cloak, hiding their movements through the very power meant to protect it, leaving behind a trail of corrupted ley lines. Sabrina could feel the wrongness of it through her connection to Quill's essence, like discordant notes in an otherwise harmonious melody. On a desk near the hidden entrance, Sabrina found a map of Hallowville, its edges marked with mysterious symbols that seemed to shift under her gaze. Marked locations formed a pattern that aligned perfectly with the magical disturbances they'd been tracking across town. She spread it out, noting how the historical society was just one point in a larger design that resembled an ancient ritual circle. Sabrina approached the mysterious sprout, her boots crunching softly on fallen leaves. The young plant had grown significantly since morning, its stem now thick as her wrist and pulsing with an inner light. Around it, flowers and vines flickered with Quill's familiar essence, creating waves of gentle luminescence that rippled through the twilight garden like a ghostly tide. She pulled out the fragmented lens, its cool surface warming at her touch like a living thing responding to her presence. Through its crystalline segments, the world transformed into a tapestry of magical currents. Threads of magical energy stretched between the Tree of Seasons and the sprout, forming an intricate web that shifted and sparkled like moonlight on water. The connection grew stronger as darkness settled, the magical strands thickening like rope and pulsing with an inner rhythm that matched her heartbeat. A sudden burst of light erupted from the sprout, causing Sabrina to stumble back, her boots catching on exposed roots. Nearby flowers morphed rapidly, chrysanthemums became daffodils, then back again, their petals blurring between autumn gold and spring yellow in a dizzying dance of seasons. Above the sprout, the air shimmered and split with an audible crackle, forming a window of pure magic that hummed with barely contained power. Through the lens, the portal's edges crystallized into focus, revealing depths that seemed to stretch into infinity. A figure emerged in its depths, the collector, their form wreathed in shadow despite the bright laboratory around them, as if darkness clung to them like a second skin. The same sickly green energy they'd traced at the historical society gleamed in their eyes as they held up fragments of what appeared to be an ancient device, its metal surface etched with symbols that made Sabrina's vision blur. Her breath caught as she recognized celestial markings along its broken edges, each piece humming with stolen power that sent shivers down her spine. The plants around her surged with Quill's essence, their leaves trembling with shared purpose as they strengthened the vision. The collector moved with precise, practiced motions, arranging the artifact pieces in a complex pattern that seemed to fold space itself. Energy siphoned from the gilded grove swirled around them like a ghostly tornado, each fragment resonating at a different pitch as it absorbed the power, creating an otherworldly symphony. Spring magic mixed with autumn energy in unstable swirls, creating discordant ripples that made Sabrina's teeth ache and set her magical senses screaming. Her heart raced as she recognized the symbols drawn on the floor, exact matches to diagrams from the missing historical society texts, their curves and angles forming patterns she'd spent countless hours studying. Through the lens, she could see how each mark connected to Hallowell's ley lines, forming a network of power that pulsed in sync with the collector's movements, like a web of living light beneath the town's surface. The vision shifted with kaleidoscopic speed, showing the collector hunched over calculations in a room filled with flickering magical lights. Their notes were covered in astronomical charts and magical formulas, all centered around the equinox, with annotations in a spidery hand that spoke of obsession. Sabrina's magical training let her understand enough to recognize their focus, points where Halloween and spring magic naturally converged, places where the barrier between seasons grew thin enough to pierce. Quill's essence writhed through nearby plants with increasing urgency, making flowers bend and twist as the scene changed again. The collector stood in a test area lined with protective wards, hands raised as they forced spring magic to overwhelm a pocket of Halloween energy with brutal efficiency. The resulting discharge tore a hole in space, a portal identical to those appearing around town, its edges crackling with the same unstable energy she'd been tracking for weeks. The implications made Sabrina's stomach clench with a cold dread that had nothing to do with the evening chill. The sprout shuddered violently, its delicate leaves rattling like autumn wind through bare branches, each tremor sending ripples of distress through Sabrina's magical awareness. In the wavering portal before her, she watched the collector's methodical movements, their shadowy form bent over a detailed map of Hallowell as they marked locations with precise, deliberate strokes. Each point they touched corresponded to a stolen artifact's location, and Sabrina's heart sank as the pattern emerged, a clear, unmistakable path leading straight to the Tree of Seasons. Behind the collector's form, Sabrina glimpsed the gilded grove, but the sight made her stomach turn. Something was terribly, fundamentally wrong. Its once magnificent golden trees now pulsed with that same toxic green energy she'd been tracking, their natural magic corrupted and twisted into something that felt like poison in her magical senses. The ancient grove's essence seemed to cry out in pain, and Sabrina had to force herself not to look away from the horrific transformation. As the portal began to fade, crackling at its edges, the sprout released one final, desperate surge of power. Above it formed a crystalline image of the Tree of Seasons, its branches reaching toward unseen stars, surrounded by swirling portals that pulsed in perfect rhythm with the approaching equinox. The vision shimmered and dissolved into sparkling motes of light that danced in the air before rearranging themselves into 3 chilling words: "Time grows short." Then they too faded into nothingness, leaving Sabrina alone with the night air and the soft, reassuring glow of Quill's essence threading through the garden's plants, a gentle reminder that at least in this moment, she wasn't truly alone.